Okay, any questions?
I think it's good to go for left ventricular hypertrophy with that image as well.
Okay, let's do it. So left ventricular hypertrophy is where this ventricle is getting bigger and bigger. Okay, now when it comes to left ventricular hypertrophy, you have two different flavors of it. You have something called eccentric hypertrophy and concentric hypertrophy. You don't have to know, you probably were not taught this part yet. Eccentric is where it's a volume problem. Concentric is where it's a pressure problem. Okay. Where it matters is the heart murmurs that are associated with it. In eccentric problem due to a volume overload, this is where you're going to have an S3 heart sound. And in concentric hypertrophy due to a pressure overload, here, let's put pressure in red. Let's put concentric pressure, put that in red. And that's where you're going to have an S4 heart sound. What's the difference? A normal heart sound is S1, S2.
Lub dub?
This is lub dub. But in an S3, is this. You have S1, S2, S3. So some people will refer to this as Kentucky, Kentucky, Kentucky. So this is your Kentucky sound. On the other hand, your S4 heart sound is this. You have your S1, S2, but then you have an S4 in front of it. So it's really S4, S1, S2. So some people will call this Tennessee, Tennessee. So Tennessee, Kentucky. Did you learn that?
No.
Never.
Okay. Well, don't worry about it. You sure they didn't go over like Kentucky and Tennessee? Okay.
Definitely not.
That's okay.
I remember going over like S1, 2, 3, and 4, but
Okay.
and the primary difference that we're talking about versus eccentric and concentric is basically like the amount of volume. So like one of them, there's not enough
So let
blood
me show you what
volume.
it
The other
actually
one,
looks like. Let me show you what it looks like practically. In eccentric, it's more of a volume problem where this ventricle is actually stretching. In concentric hypertrophy, it's more so that this muscle is getting thicker. So this muscle is getting like really thick. And in this case, what's happening is the muscle is getting so thick that it's decreasing the amount of volume that you have inside of here. So it's decreasing the filling. So filling is diastole. So diastole is when blood fills up. So this is what's called diastolic heart failure. Okay. Diastolic heart failure is where you have concentric hypertrophy due to pressure overload. Okay. Eccentric hypertrophy is where you have a volume problem and the ventricle is stretching out. And so because it's getting stretched so much due to the Frank-Starling reflex, it's having a hard time squeezing. So now you have too much volume and stretching, and that's going to lead to systolic heart failure. Okay, so when it comes to left-sided heart failure, it's either systolic or diastolic. The diastolic is the pressure problem. The systolic is a stretching problem.
and what signs
Did I
and
confuse
symptoms
you?
are associated with this?
Say it again.
What signs and symptoms are associated with this?
Okay, so with heart failure, let's say if it's a systolic problem, so I want you to kind of reason through it with me. If you have a systolic problem, you're going to have a harder time squeezing. Okay, so if you have a harder time squeezing, then that means that, are you going to pump? Like if it's hard to squeeze the blood out, do you pump out a lot of blood or pump out a little blood?
You're not going to pump out enough blood, so there could be blood pooling.
Well, you're not going to pump out enough blood. There could be blood backup, yes. So now if I don't pump out a lot, this blood accumulates. So first it's stretched out there, but then it starts backing up, and then it's going to eventually also back up to the lungs. So now I'm going to have breathing problems. Okay. But I'm also going to have decreased cardiac output because I'm simply not pumping out enough blood with every heartbeat. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So decreased cardiac output is going to be all your perfusion related stuff. So they're going to be, maybe their pulse is weak because you got to have blood flow to have a pulse. So if I don't have as much blood flow, my pulse is weak, or I have a weak and thready pulse. Okay. They're probably going to be pale, cool, clammy, pale, cool, diaphoretic. Now let's talk about, and some of this stuff overlaps. Let's talk about if I have a volume problem. If I have a volume problem, then what happens?
You're pushing.
I'm sorry. I circled this. I meant pressure problem. If I have a pressure problem where I have diastolic heart failure, what's going to happen?
You don't have enough time for the muscle to, I guess, rest to fill it back up.
Uh-huh. And if I don't have enough filling, then I don't have enough pumping.
Right.
So if I don't pump enough blood, what's going to happen?
Same thing. Cool, clammy.
Same kind of thing. That's why I said a lot of the symptoms overlap. Okay. It's just what's the underlying cause. But the end result is going to be very similar. You can still end up with the same kind of fluid backup that can still end up going to the lungs. So either one, left systolic or diastolic heart failure, either left-sided heart failure could end up with lung problems. So now they've got breathing problems, or it could also back up to the body, and now I have fluid backup everywhere. So remember how blood goes? It goes from the right side of the heart to the lungs, to the left side of the heart, to the body. Okay. And as fluid backs up, let's actually do it. Let's do this differently. Let's move these around. Let's do it this way. There we go. Because blood comes from the body to the right side, to the lungs, to the left side. So if it can't get out of the left side, then it backs up to the lungs. If it can't get out of the lungs, it backs up to the right side. If it can't get out of the right side, it backs back up to the body. So left-sided heart failure leads to breathing problems. But left-sided heart failure can also lead to right-sided heart failure. And right-sided heart failure leads to fluid backup in the body. Up in the neck, we have JVD. In the abdomen, we have ascites. Down in the feet, we have edema. Okay? All right, that's probably enough for today. How are you feeling about this? Like, is this helping, Billy?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Definitely is.
What was your big takeaway from today? Because we covered a lot today.